Good morning and welcome to another Writer's Morning Commute with Ashton Gaskill. Today we'll be discussing the third and final turning point in the 9 points and 8/8ths system of outlining, which is the low point. The midpoint is halfway between the characteristic moment and the climax or the end of the book. The point of no return, which is the first turning point, chronologically, is halfway between the characteristic opening and the midpoint. And the low point is halfway between the midpoint and the climax or the end of the book. It's about 75% of the way into the story. And like the other turning points, it kind of consists of two events. A 1-2 punch. The point of no return consists of the leaving, crossing the threshold kind of moment, and then the immediate follow-up of, oh crap, now I'm in this strange world and have to deal with it. Usually there's some sort of something right there, whether it's conflict or shock and awe. You have the chaos of leaving or the emotion of leaving, depending on what sort of story you're telling, making that transition, and then the initial impression of the new world. The midpoint has a similar 1-2 punch, as I mentioned in that video, so I won't go into it as much here, but the low point follows this trend have kind of it's called the low point. It's what the first punch is, this horrible setback where the hero or main character seems like they've lost their goal. Whatever their main story goal is, it seems impossible somehow. Or it seems at least as far away as it ever has. If not entirely impossible, basically impossible. And this is followed by a moment of personal reflection, where the character looks inward and kind of has, that moment of, how did I get here? What went wrong? The third plot point the low point plays a important part in the overall structure, as it turns us from the end of what could be called Act 2B or the second act, the third, fourth, but it turns us from the first, 3 quarters, and it turns us into the last quarter of the book. So it's putting us onto the top of the hill, where from here we're going to tap the story and it's just going to roll downhill. It's just going to be exciting and, breathtaking from here on out. So we're getting kind of the last quiet moment as we get geared up to face the final challenges leading up to the climax, and then we'll get the resolution. Some good questions that you can ask to look at for this point are, how can we, as with all the plot points, where could this be set such that makes the stakes of this moment and the aspects of this moment really stand out? Is there some sort of interesting, memorable setting that we can put here to really drive home that feeling of helplessness in this case? Can we allude to death in some way, whether that's, seeing a dead bird on the ground, or walking by a funeral, or having someone actually die? because at this point the main character should be experiencing a form of death, a death of their ego, a death of, you know, their pride, what have you, or they're facing down the likelihood of themselves dying. So trying to work that into the story somehow is a, you know, thematic way to go. It's also important to bake in a way for that character to get to that quiet contemplation moment. I know I've had some issues in some stories where I was writing and the low point was so low that there was no way for them to get out. Like, if I'd written it logically the way it was, the character would have just died. So I had to go back and say, alright, how can I tone this back a little bit so that these stakes of win or die are at the climax instead of here. So those are some of my thoughts on the low point. Thank you for writing with me. I hope you have a great day.